Spider-Man is a character from Marvel Comics that made his first appearance in the year 1962 and was created by the legendary man Stan Lee. And to this day, Spider-Man remains as one of the most popular comic book characters ever made, arguably, depending on who you ask, the most popular character ever made. Fun fact, when Stan Lee first came up with the idea of Spider-Man and presented it to his boss had said, quote, "Stan, this is one of the worst ideas you've ever come up with. People don't like spiders." But little did he know Stan Lee would by far prove him wrong. After gaining so much popularity and his appearance in Amazing Fantasy, his boss called up and it was pretty much like, "Hey Stan, remember that character Spider-Man?" And so, long story short, Spider-Man carried over to Marvel, and man, did that character go over big. And because he was popular, he got made into a crap ton of video games. Games that were on arcade machines, on the NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, even on the Atari. One of the many systems that Spider-Man game got made for was the Sony PlayStation. It is the first 3D open-world action and adventure game to be based on the Marvel Comics superhero. It launched Spider-Man into a whole new world and era of gaming, and it set the standard for so many other 3D open world games, and to this day is regarded as one of the best Spider-Man games of all time. So, without further ado, let's take a look. So, Peter Parker is at a science expo trying to cover the event, while Otto Octavius is unveiling a new invention, and this where I should mention is believed that Doc Ock is believed to have been reformed. So, again, as Peter Parker, you're there to cover the event and to take shots of Otto Octavius' unveiling of his new invention. I have no idea what it is, but whatever. So, you're there, covering the story, wishing you were somewhere else, and so is Eddie Brock trying to cover the story so he can get his life back together. Everything seems to go in very smoothly and very well, when then, somehow, all of a sudden, Spider-Man appears on the stage.
Spider-Man? Last time I checked, I was Spider-Man.
So now that the event is ruined, Eddie Brock gets angry and starts blaming Spider-Man for all of his problems and transforms into the popular Spider-Man villain, Venom. So now, because Spider-Man was framed for the theft of Otto Octavius' invention, the police are after him, the people of New York City fear him, and now you have to evade the police, prove your innocence, and figure out what's going on and why someone would frame you. Alright, and now after all that, we actually start playing the game. The graphics are quite good for the time, and the controls are pretty simple and smooth. There are basic attacks like punching and kicking, there are web-based attacks, and the web swinging is pretty stinking good. Although, my only complaint with the web swinging is that it feels like you're being magnetized to the nearest building or object in the direction that you're trying to go in, which is kind of weird. And for that reason, it almost feels clunky at times, and it can kind of mess up what you're doing and where you're trying to go and whatnot. You also have a compass in the bottom right corner of your screen that helps to tell you where you need to go. So that's quite helpful. So anyway, you go to a bank, fight some bad guys on the roof, and then you eventually make your way inside the bank, and you quickly foil a bank heist, and then after that you go to the Daily Bugle to save J. Jonah Jameson from the villain Scorpion, and then right after that you are running from a police helicopter that is shooting missiles and rockets at you, which is actually surprisingly harder than you would think due to the Western controls the way that they are in this game. After that, you leave the Daily Bugle and end up talking to two people. You talk to Daredevil, who says he'll help prove your innocence, and then you talk to Black Cat, who informs you that Rhino is attacking a power plant and that Venom has kidnapped her wife, Mary Jane Watson. So anyway, you go with Black Cat to fight Rhino at the power plant, but she's knocked out before the fight even begins, but you'll be fine. Rhino's kind of an idiot, so as long as you jump out of the way at the right time near a wall, electric barrier, or explosives, you'll be fine, and you should be able to fight Rhino with relative ease. After you defeat Rhino, you go into a cutscene that shows Doc Ock aiding the police in Rhino's capture, and then you end up seeing Black Cat being taken away in the ambulance. But the paramedics aren't actually paramedics; they're just men there to kidnap her. After that, you talk to the Human Torch for like 2 minutes, not even, and then as they're swinging on by, Venom swings by, and then you immediately go into a chase scene with Venom. And this chase scene with Venom is really cool. It's really exciting, and it really gets your adrenaline going because you need to keep up with him because only he knows where your wife Mary Jane is. But the only problem with that is that with the left-swing controls, at least how I describe them, it feels kind of weird and it can mess you up very easily. You might have to retire a couple times, or at least I did. So it's fun, but at the same time, the left-swing controls, like I said, do make it difficult, especially for me at least in this chase scene with Venom. After the chase scene, you fight him real quick, and then you follow him into these sewers, and then you gotta navigate your way through the sewers while fighting a bunch of lizard monsters, which is actually kind of stupid in my opinion. And while, like I said, to me that the fighting the lizard monsters is kind of weird and stupid, if you're one of those people who feels like you want to explore all the sewers, you might eventually come across a lizard who tells you that Venom kidnapped him and is using the wizard people as basically his minions that you gotta fight through. After navigating through the sewers for a while, you do eventually find Venom and then get into a boss fight with him. And let me tell you, this boss fight is actually really cool, really fun, and slightly intense because during the boss fight, he might turn invisible at some points, go into a different area. All the while, you have to keep hitting switches so that Mary Jane can be kept from drowning. So altogether, it makes for a really fun and somewhat intense boss fight. After the boss fight, you talk to Venom, explain that you're framed. He keeps Mary Jane from dying, and then you two talk it out on the roof, and you two decide to work together to find out what's going on.
Time.
After that, this cutscene ensues.
Could what?
Yes, we sense our other.
Who? Sense who?
It's our other, the symbiote known as Carnage. We must stop him.
Now?
Yes, now. We have no choice.
Wait, make more noise. I'm only breaking and entering here. Spider sense tingling. Now what? Spidey, whoever's behind all this. Got symbiotes. And me.
So then, after fighting a bunch of symbiote creatures throughout the whole game, you encounter Mysterio, who reveals himself to be the imposter, and then you get into a boss fight, which boss fight's actually pretty easy. You just fight a giant version of him, hit some weak points, and then the boss battle is over. So after you beat Mysterio, he tells you that his boss is hiding out in some place called Warehouse 65. You head there, you meet up with Punisher, he helps you get into the place, and then you go in there, you find out that there's a secret underground base where you see an imprisoned Black Cat, you have to save her from a poisonous fog, and then we catch up with Doc Ock and Carnage. After that, we get a cutscene with Carnage and Doc Ock, with Doc Ock explaining that he was a mastermind behind everything, and he wants to create a new world with symbiote under his rule. Venom then takes off to fight Carnage, and then we get into a boss fight with Doc Ock, which is honestly easier said than done, as you have to dodge his attacks and hit buttons that you would have to wait for a decent amount of time to come down, and you can't go in the other direction as they get blocked off by energy barriers. So it's kind of difficult. Right after defeating Doc Ock, we are put into the following cutscene.
Are you alright? Talk to me. Wake up, Brock.
Look out.
What'd you say?
So then we are put into a boss fight with Carnage, which is challenging, but for all the right reasons. Nothing to do with controls. It's just that Carnage is a hard guy to beat. Anyway, you just gotta keep him within a certain radius of a machine that Doc Ock built, because you can only hurt him after you hit the buttons on the machine, which emits a very high frequency sound that will weaken Carnage so that you can actually get a couple punches in and do some actual damage to him. After all that, we get this cutscene.
No one can control the symbiotes. No one I've met anyway. Take a breather, Spidey. It's over. Well, just another day in the life. Whoa! What the? Is that Hawk? Warning.
And then after that, we are put into a chase scene where we run away from a Carnage-infected Doc Ock.
This is gonna blow. I gotta get out of here.
And in this final chase scene, when you're running from a Carnage-infected Doc Ock, that's already intense in and of itself. But because that will sometimes change into a 2D semi 2D side scroller combined with the web swinging controls that are kind of clunky and mismanaged, like I was talking about and whatnot, it gets pretty intense and it makes me really mad and angry at the game quite a bit during this moment. So after the chase sequence, you do eventually escape. You carry Otto Octavius up to the roof, and then Captain America, Venom, and a bunch of other people come to your rescue. They take you away, and then after all is said and done, you, Captain America, and a bunch of other heroes just sit around having a good time playing a nice, friendly game of poker. The end. So, all in all, it really is a great Spider-Man game with some minor flaws that don't affect the overall experience of the game. And for the first 3D open world Spider-Man game, it's like I said, it's pretty awesome. It's no wonder why so many people loved it and why so many people still do. And it's clear why it's still hailed as one of the greatest Spider-Man games of all time. Overall, great experience, would recommend. Give it a shot. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility. I'm Cameron Trudd. Thank you for watching Retro Station. See you in the next episode.